there's going to be a wealth of knowledge shared, and I want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to go back and look at this recording if they have any additional questions. All right, so Frantz, let's get right into it. So as you know, at WBENC, we're dedicated to helping women-owned businesses thrive. And so with everything you just mentioned about the initiatives that you are spearheading, I'm eager to know what the process of a women-led M&A initiative might look like.
Sure. So it's worth mentioning that obviously we are in the private equity game. And we are here at Ariel Alternatives focused entirely on newly creating minority business enterprises of scale, and to the extent it's possible, working with smaller MBEs to create financing solutions when those opportunities present itself through our portfolio companies. I'm of the opinion that a similar initiative is possible with women entrepreneurs. And to the extent anyone within earshot of my remarks would like to be in touch with me or my partners to talk about what a women-led fund initiative or M&A initiative could look like, we certainly welcome that. The truth of the matter is that the nation is in dire need of more wealth creating, job creating, and business ownership opportunities in the hands of Black and brown people. However, the same is true of women. And every corporate that I have ever engaged in recognizes the importance and also the competitive advantage of aligning with women business enterprises and aligning with women in their organizations. And to the extent that it's possible that someone else wanted to look at what we're doing at Project Black and say, hey, we could be doing the same thing to create women business enterprises of global scale. It's in actuality a bigger opportunity and a bigger delta than the one represented by the opportunity to create minority business enterprises of scale. So if individuals wanted to be in touch with us to have a dialogue about what that could look like, we would certainly welcome that. And I'm sure that the folks at JPMorgan Chase and Walmart and WBENC would also welcome an opportunity to take a look at what that could look like as well.
Certainly, definitely. As you said, it's a huge opportunity and potentially even bigger than the MBE focus. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. And so from your experience, as you know, our world has been pivoting. The word pivoting has been thrown out 101 times in the last 2 years. And so from your experience, how has procurement demand among Fortune 500 companies for minority and women-owned businesses changed over the past year or two?
Yeah, there's no doubt, Audrey, that there has been a significant shift in our culture. And that shift was in part precipitated by the worldwide pandemic that we're dealing with, but at the same time, it was unfortunately precipitated by the murder of George Floyd. Even prior to the events of last summer with George Floyd and everything, the corporate commitment to supply diversity was high. And since then, a new focus has been placed on racial reconciliation and a new set of demands and proclamations and expectations and standards where supply diversity and diversity, equity, inclusion is concerned have been made. I'm of the opinion that M&A activity is really the only way to fill the gap between where we are today in terms of minority business enterprises, and I would include women business enterprises in that category as well, that service into the Fortune 500. The only way to fill the gap between where we are today and where most of the corporates want to be is through M&A activity. Just for perspective, our research suggests that approximately 2% of North American spend across the Fortune 1000 is represented by MBEs. Depending on which research you look at, MBEs and WBEs are included in that 2.5% figure. Most corporates would love to be at 10%. A number of corporates are at 15%, and depending on which sector you're focused on, some have targets as much as 20 and 30% that they would like to be doing with minority-owned enterprises. Women business enterprises are not too far behind. The only way to fill the delta between the 2.5% that we're at right now, and just to say the 10 or 15% that most corporates would want to be at, in my opinion, can only be filled with M&A activity.
Oh, that's interesting. And what's really great is your model is so interesting. You know, it's great for all of us to consider as one of our various ways of scaling up. And how I also enjoy about your model is that scaling up may not always come organically, and your focus is to ensure that there's an opportunity for individuals who don't typically, these opportunities are not available to them, have the opportunity to grow. And so let's say a women-owned business is looking to develop her exit strategy. And what steps do you suggest that she takes to position her business to be ready and attractive for potential investments?
Yeah, the first thing that I would say is to refer to the supply diversity function of the corporates that WBE may be servicing into. They are there to be a resource. They are there to be a guide as to what, at the end of the day, the client wants to see over time. Supply diversity typically has a very clear bead on where the supply chain is going over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And rolling supply diversity and the corporates as a partner or as a co-architect of this financing solution that a WBE might be looking for, hugely important and a welcomed development, in my opinion. Separate from that, once you've engendered the support of your clients, being willing to partner. And yes, that can be a difficult thing, and you want to be thoughtful about who you bring into your company, which financing sources you ally yourself with. But an openness to partnership is critical. And I see this all the time. My running tagline, which I can't take credit for, I give my business partners credit for this. They're known to ask the question, do you want 100% of a grape, or would you rather have 50% of a very large cantaloupe, right? Logically, most of us would want 50% of a very large cantaloupe as compared to 100% of a grape. But typically we find that many entrepreneurs, especially individuals that started the companies themselves, are reticent to enter into these partnerships, even when those partnerships could represent a significant expansion of wealth and opportunity. Be willing to share control, share ownership of the company in the effort to create something more compelling. The last thing that I would say is, and my third point, constant and never-ending improvement or innovation. Okay, and this goes in close concert with my earlier remarks around allying and conferring very closely with the supply diversity function, understanding what the client really needs and filling that need, doing so elegantly and doing so in a time-efficient way. And then within that context, committing to constant innovation and constant improvement, a critical component to not only a successful exit, but to presiding over a successful enterprise of any size or scale.
I love that. So number one, be willing to partner. And I love the quote, do you want 100% of a grape or 50% of a large cantaloupe? And cantaloupes are actually my favorite fruit. So I think I'll choose the cantaloupe anyways. Yeah. I've been seeing some questions in the chat, but I want to encourage everyone. So Zoom does have a Q&A function. It's on the bottom of your screen. Please submit your questions there so they don't get lost in the chat. Frantz will be taking questions in just a bit, so please ensure you submit your questions using that button. All right, so Frantz, in relation to growing through mergers and acquisitions, what factors do you suggest that our listeners consider as they research potential acquisitions to scale their businesses through mergers and acquisitions?
Audrey, it really comes down to three questions in my mind. Question number one, through this M&A activity, am I bringing in capabilities that are valued and important to my client base. Okay, is there synergy, and am I solving a real pain point and a real problem, and am I bringing a solution to my clients at the end of the day through this partnership or through this M&A activity? That's question number one. Question number two, and this is related to the reticence sometimes that I see in entrepreneurs to partner: is there a cultural fit? Is there a cultural fit with the company or the new partners that I'm allying with in this financing event or with this M&A activity? And last but not least, are all parties aligned? Are all interests aligned? On the other side of a transaction, are all members of the organization, are all members of the board, are all members of management properly incentivized and aligned to move all in the same direction? Those are three critical questions that I would welcome any entrepreneur to keep in mind as part of any M&A activity or any financing that they might be looking for in their companies.
Great, thank you so much for that. And the last questions before we open up the questions to the audience, again, make sure you submit your questions in the Q&A function. The question is, what obstacles or pitfalls do you see most often in MWB businesses looking to grow through partnerships?
Yeah, there's no doubt that, and there's no question, the research and the data clearly suggests that ethnic minorities, women entrepreneurs, have not historically and even today had the same access to capital that majority entrepreneurs, let's just say, have enjoyed. Obviously, Project Black at Ariel Alternatives is trying to address that. As per my earlier remarks, personally, I would love to see a large fund similar to what we're doing with Project Black, addressing women business enterprises at significant or even global scale. Certainly myself, my other partners welcome that dialogue and would welcome a discussion with the appropriate individuals who would be interested in that type of thought process. But at the core of it is this historical lack of access for both ethnic minorities and women to capital. That has been a challenge, and obviously we're trying to address that. A second obstacle: unrealistic valuation expectations, and it's tough, right? You're an entrepreneur. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into a particular company. You need to grow. Maybe you've come to terms with the fact that you've got to partner with other individuals, other funds, other financing sources in order to continue servicing clients at a very high level. But one's expectations of how to value one's company or what the valuation ought to be sometimes is out of lockstep with the market expectation, let's just say. And that can be a impediment and an obstacle. And the last one, I won't harp on it, but I'll mention again, a willingness to relinquish control, a willingness to partner and to bring other individuals or entities into the company to facilitate growth. Critically important. Candidly, it's been a challenge that I've seen come up routinely when interfacing with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I anticipate we have solutions to each of those points, but these tend to be themes that I see repeatedly in my interactions.
It makes perfect sense. A lot of times when we create organizations and businesses, they're an extension of ourselves. And so relinquishing control is at times hard. And thank you so much for that great discussion, Frantz. We do have a few questions from the audience. The first question is from Tiffany. She says, I am a small business owner and I'm not sure if my business is ready to acquire another company. Can you please share how to test or gauge if and when a merger or acquisition is right for my business?
Yeah, so that's going to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. I'm not quite sure what industry you're in or your capabilities. But I would start by holding conversations with friendlies, individuals in the private equity space, investment bankers, brokers. I highly encourage that folks either bringing individuals onto their boards or their boards of advisors that have experience with the capital markets. These are all individuals that can help to guide one's thought process around the right time to look at acquisitions or which acquisitions might make the best sense. I would caution around looking for individuals to know more about your business than you do. It's been, and I speak from experience, if you started a company or acquired a business or have been operating a business for a long period of time, I want to reassure you that you are the best person to work with, if you will, to understand what the opportunity might be, with the expectation that maybe you can bring other people to adjust your thinking or to help to orient you in a particular direction. But usually other individuals can adjust your thinking. The entrepreneur is almost always the best person to have a really great sense as to what's going to drive value for a particular operation over time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The next question says, what process do you use to initially approach the Fortune 500 companies you've targeted, and how do you determine those targets?
Okay, so I just need clarification on the question, Audrey. Is the question how early or what's the nature of my interactions with the Fortune 500 if I'm looking at M&A activity? Is that, yeah, so the Fortune 500 and our clients are really at the center of everything that we do, okay? And aside from the impact that we are looking to have in Black and Brown communities, our relationships with the Fortune 500 are critical to how we here at Ariel Alternatives operate. And we understand that the customer is writing checks for everybody, and value is derived from those entities that are issuing the contracts to operating businesses, or in our case, our portfolio companies. So we like to be very, very close with our Fortune 500 relationships, even when we don't have anything to buy or anything to sell. We like to understand where our clients' supply chains are going over the next 5, 10, and even, in some cases, even 20 years. We want to understand what their pain points are. And we want to be viewed really as a strategic partner in helping them to build terrific supply chain partners that, oh, by the way, are having a terrific ESG impact, particularly in Black and Brown communities.
I love that. The customer is writing checks for everybody. And how do you typically determine what Fortune 500 companies to partner with?
That's going to vary on a deal by deal basis. But typically we like to work with those corporates that are most progressive, most forward thinking, are willing to work with entities like ours, more of an open innovation approach. And there's no shortage of corporates who fall into that category. When we have identified an opportunity that meets their needs and candidly is of interest to us from an investment standpoint, we will be pretty open about engaging with the Fortune 500 way before we even start the negotiations to acquire the business, to really understand collectively how we can work together to build a supply chain company that is a terrific contributor to the end client.
Awesome. Our next question asks, do you recommend working with a broker to identify companies that would be interested in M&A? If so, how do you best identify a broker? Yeah,
I would recommend that. Obviously, transactions get done all the time without an intermediary. However, if an entrepreneur or a WBE in question has not gone out to the markets before or engaged in M&A activity, it might be to one's advantage to work with an intermediary.
Great. And at what level of revenue does it make sense to consider merging or acquiring? What minimum economic viability would you suggest?
Okay. I've seen terrific M&A deals that are almost venture-like in terms of their size dimensions. And obviously, in my work with Ariel, we work on the upper ends of the middle market. So it would have to depend on a case-by-case basis.
I love it. And so could you give an example of a women-owned business that does the kind of innovation that you're talking about, which would make them attractive for partners?
Well, that'll be a bit challenging for me to answer, Audrey. But what I can tell you is, for many, many years, and I'm joined by many corporates, some of whom are probably listening in at the moment. The idea of a initiative to newly create or to intentionally scale women business enterprises on a national, even global level, because you've got this dedicated financing initiative for the purposes of doing that, similar to what we're doing with Project Black on the MBE side. I am waiting for the appropriate parties to say, hey, this would be a really great idea. I anticipate that myself and my partners at Ariel Alternatives would welcome that dialogue. We're intensely focused on Project Black right now, but it'd be an interesting conversation.
Certainly. And a lot of individuals have been asking, where do you typically learn about businesses that you may be interested in partnering with on the women-owned side, and where or what should they be doing or spending their time on to ensure that they're being seen?
In our particular case, as I mentioned, we work very, very closely with the corporates. We are in constant communication with procurement executives on any level of a Fortune 500 enterprise at any moment in time. We are engaging and we welcome these discussions at all times. And we hear about and we see opportunities from the corporates themselves very readily. It is a channel for deal flow to us. Even though we are focused ourselves on MBEs, we would welcome an opportunity to hear from existing WBEs that could meet the needs of the corporates. For a WBE to newly become an MBE through a relationship with Ariel Alternatives is certainly a possibility, and we would welcome that. And candidly, we expect to hear from our corporate relationships about who we could be speaking with along those lines.
Awesome. And so I know there are a lot of questions that we have listed. They're eager to ask you, but I know our segment is ending shortly. And so I want to ask this last question because I know a lot of individuals who've been putting this in the chat. How do they contact you or Project Black if they're ready to move forward?
I got you. Audrey, will provide you with my contact information, and you can feel free to we are big supporters of WBENC. I think you are a terrific organization. Glad to provide my contact information and authorize anyone who'd like to be in touch with us across a number of contexts to be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Frantz. I mean, such a great discussion, wealth of knowledge, so insightful. Thank you so much for just your time and your commitment to making sure that you're giving back and even participating in this session. We really appreciate your time and your support. Thank you so much. And keep in mind that Frantz will be answering more questions towards the later part of our session today. So I know we have more questions that you probably want to ask. We're going to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask that. Thank you so much again, Frantz.
Of course, Audrey, my pleasure. For me, this is a life's passion. So I welcome every opportunity to share, and really thank you, Audrey, for inviting me to participate.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
All right. So as you have seen, really great session. Really great insights are being shared during our session today. And so I'm really excited for this next portion as well of our session. I would like to introduce to you our next speaker for today, Fred Royall, who is also the moderator for our upcoming panel. And Fred is the Managing Director and National Head of Diverse Businesses at JPMorgan Chase Co. He's a business development executive in commercial banking with a national focus on diverse businesses. He partners with middle market banking and specialized industry segment heads and bankers across the country to identify new opportunities and build upon existing relationships with women and minority-owned businesses. In addition to driving new business, Fred also focuses on developing an integrated diversity strategy that aligns with global supplier diversity, advancing Black pathways, and women on the move. Fred was also very instrumental and worked closely with our team to make this session possible. And we appreciate you so much, Fred, for your support and all that you do for women-owned businesses. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Fred Royall. Welcome, Fred.
Thank you, Audrey. It is a sincere pleasure to be a part of today's discussion. First, I want to, first of all, thank WBENC for giving me the opportunity to participate. Like Frantz, this is personal to me in terms of ensuring that both diverse and women-owned businesses have every opportunity to succeed. As mentioned, my responsibility, I'm the national head of diverse businesses at JPMorgan, and every day my focus is how do we become more intentional around supporting the growth for women in diverse businesses. I couldn't be happier to have our two esteemed panelists today. As we think about successful leaders, entrepreneurs that have grown incredibly successful businesses, they're also good people. Can't think of two better panelists than today. So I'm delighted to lead today's panel. Just to give some additional color about Rich Dennis. Rich is someone that I follow closely for quite some time and just have watched his trajectory as he's built, exited, and also given back in a really meaningful way. So we have his bio, which I want to read, but also wanted to share that personal part of the story as well. Rich Dennis has a passion for entrepreneurship and innovation that traces back to his family's roots in Africa and is sustained by a mission to serve underserved communities by advancing the philosophy of economic inclusion as a human right. In 2017, he founded Essence Ventures, an independent Black-owned consumer technology company focused on emerging content that meets the cultural and lifestyle needs of people of color. In January 2018, the company announced that it has acquired Essence Communications from Time. But this is just a small part of the story of Rich Dennis. And I look forward to us sharing more, and Rich, for you to share more of your story in today's panel. Secondly, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to reconnect with Ann Ramakumaran, who is the founder and CEO of Ampcus. I had the good fortune of meeting Ann pre-pandemic a couple of years ago, and listening to her on a panel share such great insights. It was clear that not only has she built a successful business, but that she was just getting started. So fast forward 2 years later, it is really awesome to see that business has continued to flourish. She's a tech-savvy entrepreneur with more than 20 years of design, development, and delivery of innovative and leading-edge technology solutions and human capital management across the globe. Under her leadership, she has cultivated Ampcus and its group of companies into a fast-growing consulting and professional services organization. Under her leadership, Ampcus has made the Inc. 500 and 5,000 lists and has been recognized as a top diversity business, and was also awarded Woman of Technology Entrepreneur of the Year by WIT, and most recently was inducted into the Women's Business Enterprise Hall of Fame. One key theme across each of these incredible entrepreneurs is not only are they successful, but as highlighted before, they give back. So I think we're in for a real treat today, hearing from both Rich and Ann about their journey and how to think about scaling of a business. So with that as a backdrop, let's ask the first question. And this is to you both. And Rich, I'm going to start with you. You both have incredible stories, having built extremely successful companies. Can you talk a little bit about what were the key attributes to your company's growth, and how important was scaling in the company's growth trajectory?
Yeah, well, Fred, great to see you, man, and welcome everybody, and thank you for having me. So I think for us, scale was, of the utmost importance, right? We've had beauty businesses in the Black community for some time, but those businesses have always been not just disproportionately disadvantaged. The marketplace was set up and structured to keep us in small businesses and not having the opportunity to grow by setting up store configurations like the ethnic aisle, where you could only be in a small section of the store in the back of the store, not get full access to all the customers in the store, branding and marketing the section in the way that said this is only for Black people. And I always used to say, that the retail store was the only place that segregation was legal, right? You could legally say this is for Black people and this is for beauty, right? And that sort of differentiation. So what that did was that it created an environment and a marketplace of where we could only grow to certain sizes because we were immediately locked out of 94% of the marketplace, right? And so our objective was to break that open and to be able to go after 100% of the marketplace, which would then allow us to do the scale, and partners like Walmart enable that opportunity. And so for us, the reason the scale was so important is because we have a business model called community commerce, and the community commerce model is that we should invest, or we do invest 10% of our top line revenue back into the Black community. And so we started that by empowering cooperatives in West Africa, where we got our supply. So the bigger the business, the more dollars we could invest, not just in the Black community here, but in building the supply chain and the infrastructure in West Africa. And so scale was of utmost importance to us. And I think as we think of what the world looks like today and where we're all headed, different businesses, different industries, we can't have true impact in our communities if the only opportunity we have is to run mom and pop operations, right? So capital is important, scale is extremely important, but if we're truly going to change these communities, we have to be in a position to build large businesses that can employ large numbers of people from our community, that can empower them to go out and build other businesses beyond us. So scale is extremely important.
Excellent. Thank you, Rich. And I love that you highlighted that as the business grew, you felt that not only were you going to support the Black community here, but going back to Africa and really driving through scale even greater impact. So yeah. Thank you for that. And same question to you. I will repeat it just to make certain that you have it right. But what were the key attributes of your company's growth, and how important is scale in the company's growth and development?
Yeah, Fred, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. Really excited to be joining you and Rich on this panel discussion. Greetings to all. As Fred mentioned, I'm Ann Ramakumaran, founder and CEO of Ampcus. Fred, so for us as well, scalability was of utmost importance, and you did ask about the attributes that got us to where we are today. Some of our key attributes to our success has been continuous investments, right, in people, process, and infrastructure to support growth. And what was happening in our industry, especially when it comes to human capital management or consulting businesses, there was the shift in the way services were being procured by members of corporate America, agencies, and nonprofits. We saw, in our journey of being in business for over 17 years, we've seen it all. We've seen them move from time and material based work to outcome based delivery models to a combination of both on-site, off-site, a combination of on-site, off-site, offshore. So for us, absolutely, scalability was of utmost importance, because what we all strive for is how can we as suppliers continue to be that supplier of choice, and as great employers, what can we do to be that employer of choice? So for us, absolutely, that was of utmost importance. And what we did for that was we've continued to focus and find innovative ways of what are some of the additional solutions and services that we could do, and can those solutions be replicated across industry segments. So from our perspective today, Fred, we have a strong presence within the banking, financial, insurance sector, but we also
Okay, I believe that we've lost Ann for a second.
have a strong presence within the utility as well as utility and yeah, I'm back. Okay, all right. So what I was trying to say is, Fred, we're able to replicate, right, a lot of the solutions and services that we have across industry segments. So for us, diversification was important, Fred, and if we had to continue to be that supplier across industry segments and also provide additional solutions and services to our existing customers, scalability was important, right?
Great.
We also saw a shift, Fred, from their procurement process of procuring those services locally and then procuring it nationally and then globally. So for all of those reasons, I think scalability was of utmost importance for us, Fred.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you for that, Ann. And just building upon that, and I'm going to start with you, Ann, and then Rich, I want to come back to you because I think you have a very good insight here as well. I think what we've seen, if we start with the $1 billion roundtable, and we look at the fact that a decade ago, there was $33 billion to spend. Fast forward last year, $85 billion in spend by 29 organizations. It just seems like this is such an incredibly exciting time for both women and diverse-owned businesses. So I would love for you to share your view in terms of the current environment, how you're thinking about it, and why this is an exciting time to you.
Well, Fred, I would say you said it right. Truly exciting time for women-owned businesses and diverse businesses, because corporations are calling and taking action. They're calling it to action. Let me put it that way, Fred. So what, Fred, you're seeing it across different advocacy organizations. There are more and more corporations coming forward and showing their interest in being corporate members, and because they really want to do well from a supply diversity perspective, but also when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So even if we talk about WBENC, right? I mean, in this last 1 year alone, there's so many corporations that signed up as corporate members because they really want to make a difference in the lives of women-owned businesses as well as other diverse businesses. When we talk about those corporations who have robust, diversity programs in place, Fred, they're taking pledges. They're finding ways of going ahead and increasing that year on year, right? I mean, even if we talk about JPMorgan Chase, Fred, look at the pledge that was taken, right? I mean, we salute corporations coming forward, and making that commitment of increasing their spend with women-owned businesses. What we're also seeing, and why I believe it's truly exciting time is also, Fred, because corporations are collaborating with advocacy organizations and nonprofits like WBENC and other organizations to make sure that they not just give a fair chance to women-owned businesses to bid, but they're also ensuring that a master services agreement is signed, it's awarded, and also working with them very closely and positioning them for success, right? So definitely exciting times. A lot of focus on what are some of the innovative ways that they could go ahead and increase and have more and more women-owned businesses do well in different industry segments. So there are different sessions that corporations and WBENC are collaborating together and seeing and ensuring that women-owned businesses within the energy sector or the IT sector or other industry segments continue to do well, thrive, and succeed by bringing in different programs. So definitely exciting times, Fred. From even if we talk about Ampcus alone, there was a trend when we would sign about 4 corporations a quarter. We're seeing that's moved from 4 corporations a quarter to 4 corporations a month. And when we talk about hiring resources, we would trend anywhere between 56 to 60 a month just with Ampcus alone. And now that's trending from 128 to 156 a month. So definitely exciting times. And this is going to stay.
That's great.
About it.
That's great. Very well said. And I'm so glad you talked about the work that's being done at WBENC, because I fully agree there's a tremendous opportunity, and it's thanks to the leadership of organizations like WBENC that women businesses have the opportunity to fully capture these opportunities through events like today. So again, to Jill and the leadership team at WBENC, thank you for the work that you've done. Rich, turning to you, similar question. As you think about the current environment, what is it for you that's exciting about it? And, I think it's also always great to get perspective around, like, as we look out, what do you think? Is this a 3-year opportunity, a 5-year opportunity, or do you think that there is a secular shift that's occurring? This is something that's been bandied about, and there are a lot of different views. So Rich, we would just love your insight.
Yeah. I think it's an extraordinarily exciting time. I share with the companies in our portfolio and the entrepreneurs in there that there has never been a greater economic opportunity for the Black community and people of color in the history of this planet. There just has not been, right? Now you can go back to the days of Mansa Musa, but besides that, there just has not been. And so that's extremely exciting. It's also happening at a time where the world is changing, not just from how they're looking at the economic development of Black community and of people of color communities or BIPOC or whatever the different ways that we do it. We're also having a fundamental shift in how business is done, where business is done. We're having an extraordinary impact of technology transforming the speed through which is done, taking out quite a few of the barriers that are in place. So all of this is not just happening in the Black community. This is happening broadly, right? The change is all around us, and to finally have the and we're at the very beginning of it. I don't want to by any chance say, hey, we've now gotten all these commitments. Like, a lot of these commitments is just BS. It's people doing press releases. There are those that are really getting in and doing the work, and we're seeing that, and we're also seeing the ones that are not, right? So let's not claim victory yet, but we're at an incredible place, and part of that is what makes it so exciting, right? And with all of the excitement also comes risk, right? The risk of of performance, because this would only be sustainable if we empower those that we're investing in to be successful. If we're doing the things that go over and beyond sort of, here's the opportunity, right? I've opened my retail store to you, here's my shelf space. That's not enough. We have been locked out of these opportunities for so long that we haven't necessarily built up all of the infrastructure, all of the, just cutting a check or just giving you shelf space isn't necessarily going to make you successful. So my caution is everybody that's driving these opportunities should be thinking about it deeper and broader than what's happening this year. And so that gets me to sort of that, when you say, if you look out 5 years, if I look out 5 years, what I'm truly excited about is that we would have had a year, 2, 3 years to not just receive some of these opportunities, but to also prove that we are good business. Investing in our community is extraordinary business. It is a great place to go grow your business, right? It's a great place for JPMorgan to go grow, right? It's a great place to find new avenues to grow. And so for me, the excitement comes in when we start to deliver businesses that are driving true value in the marketplace. When we are holding our partners that are investing in these communities finally accountable to investing beyond the press release and investing beyond cutting the check, and making sure that what they're doing is building sustainable opportunities. Because to be quite honest, when you think of the structures and the infrastructures that have been in place all these decades and centuries that have held women businesses back, that have held Black businesses back, if we don't adjust the fundamentals inside of these organizations, this will not be as successful as it ought to be. There'll be a few people that will do well, right? But it won't be that sea change that we're looking for. So that's the other place that I say, over the next 5 years, I'm excited to see what are the policies and processes and infrastructures and structures that have been built up over the past 100, 200 years that are now shifted so that the opportunity becomes sustainable. So it's an exciting time, but it's also one that I think is should encourage us to think deeper. Again, very well said. And I can tell you, so Andy, you touched upon some of the work that's being done at JPMorgan. We as a firm spend, approximately $2.7 billion with women in diverse businesses, and over the next 5 years, an incremental $750 million will go towards supporting procuring with Black and Latino businesses. And Rich, to your point around not just having a commitment, but setting in place infrastructure and being intentional about providing those opportunities is what's necessary. So that it's just more than in a commitment. And I am proud to say that I think we are making very good strides. There's a lot more work to be done. Rich, something else which you touched on around, if we look 3 to 4 years out, there's the opportunity for these businesses to show that they're just that, good businesses. And it's an important point, because I think oftentimes there's this misnomer that these businesses have opportunities solely because that they're either Black or they're women-owned businesses. And that's not the case. We're looking for a level playing field to provide opportunity, and the business can execute. They just need that opportunity, and so I think I have the same hope and excitement as you that 3 to 4 years from now, we'll look back and say, hey, we've seen these businesses not only execute as Black-owned businesses, but just best in class, because that's what they are. And that's where we want to really change this equation in terms of how we're thinking about it.
Yeah, and Fred, I'm in total agreement with you. And thank you, Fred, for all you and Bill and Jill and the entire diversity procurement sourcing and thank you to all the stakeholders at JPMorgan Chase. You guys have been doing great because, you know, we're that living, breathing example, right? I mean, we were brought in as a supplier 2.5 years ago at JPMC, and we were not just brought in because, you know, we're a women-owned business. You know, we had to go through the entire stringent process. But then you all also work together, you know, to position us for success. And here we are in the areas that we specialize in for 2.5 years, continue to be ranked, you know, top supplier, continue to be ranked top 3 suppliers, right? So we're and that's the reason why I'm saying truly exciting times. It's not just to Rich's point, right? And Rich, you nailed it. You said that right. I mean, it's not just about, you know, awarding contracts, but are we walking the halls with them? Are we positioning them for success? And are we also thinking about, you know, these diverse businesses, not just within, you know, our companies, but are we doing something that's right, that's going to help them succeed in the marketplace? And is that being trickled down to, you know, to other, you know, businesses as well? And the other thing why I say it's exciting too is also, Fred, we're seeing a lot of moves happening because it's intentional and it's happening from the top. A lot of those, you know, companies who had very good, robust programs and had very good senior advocates within the diversity space, they're moving to those entities and, you know, building that grounds up, and we can see it. It's going to fall in place, right? And all of those corporations who didn't have a plan, they're very soon going to go ahead and start increasing, and they're going to, you know, make sure that, you know, there are women-owned businesses that are inducted in and are all given a fair chance to succeed. So truly exciting times.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. So coming back, I want to come back to this issue of scale. And how do we think about that? How do we approach it? And Rich, you had touched on in a previous question about your portfolio. And if you don't mind, just kind of sharing at a high level, you know, how you've thought about assembling a portfolio, the types of companies, and for businesses that are thinking about scale, and even for your own portfolio, kind of what are some of those key sectors, key themes that you've seen in the market today that you find very attractive?
Yeah, I think, so just for people on here that may not know, give it a little bit of background on it. Yeah. After we sold Sundial to Unilever and then acquired Essence, we set up a fund called New Voices Fund for Women of Color, which was a $100 million fund that was focused exclusively on Black women entrepreneurs. And then we set up something alongside same size and same for Black men, right? And so that has given us an opportunity over the past 2 years or so to do some 60 plus investments in Black-owned businesses. With, quite frankly, some extraordinary results, right? And some of the fastest growing CPG brands in the country, some very strong fintech brands, about 2 or 3 that are on their way to unicorn status, and so it's been an extraordinary couple of years watching what happens. And remember, we started all of this before George Floyd and before all of this activity had happened. And so what's interesting about it is to see what was before and what is now, right? And I think the areas that we found, which will not be of much surprise to everybody here, is that the women tend to focus more on the CPG and in particular the beauty categories. So you see a lot of extraordinary businesses there, few tech, but mostly beauty. And on the men's side, it's kind of the reverse, right? They all focus sort of on the tech, whether it's fintech or it's consumer tech or it's focus on the tech, and very few sort of in the consumer goods space. What's interesting is that they're both doing extraordinarily well, right? Both of those other areas. What we haven't seen as much of, and where I think is a tremendous amount of opportunity, especially as we think about the infrastructure bill that's coming alive, we think about just what needs to happen in this country, we have not seen as much emphasis and focus come in from sort of the service side. And it's an area that I think is very ripe, as I said, because of the infrastructure and also because of who we are as entrepreneurs to begin with, right? We may not necessarily be thinking in those directions in our communities or coming from there. You know, there's a reason that the first PPP, we had such a hard time because a lot of us are single proprietors. Yeah. There hasn't been a lot of effort in those spaces, like, you know, in electrical contractors, plumbing contractors, HVAC, you know, building those businesses and scaling them up. They've been servicing government contracts for a long time, but we haven't seen a tremendous amount of effort in building those types of businesses and investing there. So that's the sector I'm going to head to next. I think that's a huge area of opportunity. I think another area of opportunity and where we've seen quite a bit of success, as I said, has been in companies like Honey Pot and Royall, those companies that have really sort of distanced themselves, is now spreading out into other sectors of consumer. So very well in beauty, but what about food, right? What about home decor? What about some of these other places culturally? We have a knack for, and that we drive, if you will, but we just haven't monetized. So that's another area of a focus that you'll see from us in our next fund.
Right. Okay. Great. So just building upon that, because we kind of talked a little bit about the growth of your previous business, but we didn't get to the point, which I think is also really interesting and it could be very insightful. So can you talk a little bit more about the journey in terms of having built a successful business, how you got to a point where it was time to monetize it, you know, and like, what was that process like? What were some key lessons learned as you evaluated potential partners? What was it about Unilever that stood out? Because you have an excellent lens into how to have a successful exit. And I think, you know, sharing that experience for the group will be very helpful. Yeah.
So, you know, that's a big question. There was a lot there. I'll try to bring it in. But I think let's first start with sort of like the why, right? There's also a stigma in our communities that sort of force us to always have to not have the freedom to think about exiting. Right. It's you sold out, right? You sold out. And what I try to help people understand is that there are many ways to create wealth, right? And there are many ways, but there are a few ways to create generational wealth, right? Yep. And so if we're gonna create generational wealth, it starts with having not all of your wealth tied up in one asset, but your wealth, but being able to unlock that wealth and invest it in other places so that you can drive at more things and create more opportunities and carry less risk. When everything's tied into just one business and into one, you're carrying a tremendous amount of risk. And the ability to transfer that from one generation to the next in one business becomes harder because, you know, talent is different generation to generation. Interests are different. So as we thought about that, our business, you know, I built my business with my mother and my sister, and we built that business for 28 years before we sold it. And so we carried all of that risk, and all of our wealth was locked in that business. And there are other ways that you can do it through debt, and there's other ways to do it, but there's nothing more, I think, more powerful and more impactful than being able to unlock the capital, to unlock the wealth from within the business and spread it out. And so as we started to think about that, well, who could be a partner that we could not just understand the value of what we were building and give us the value for it, but that we thought could drive not just the business forward, but could drive our values forward, could continue our mission of leveraging the business to invest and impact the Black community. And so as we looked at different partners, Unilever was the one that stood out, not just because they said that they would, but because they had a history of having done that with other brands prior, just not focused in our communities, right? So if you think like Ben and Jerry's and some of the others. And so that made them a good partner for the future of the brand that we were building. On top of that, we had the good fortune along the way to partner with Bain 2 years before we did our deal with Unilever. And what that process taught us was that A, how you maximize value, B, the different things that you could actually ask. So for a lot of the folks on here, we may think, oh, you can't ask this, you can't ask that, you can't do this, you can't. Go get yourself a partner that's done it 100 times, that knows what to go ask and knows how to build towards the ask. And so for us, that was a big step in the journey. And so what we were able to ask Unilever for were things like, you need to commit to our community commerce model. We're setting up this fund. You need to partner with us in this fund, right? We want a board that oversees the community commerce model within the business, so that we're able to keep track of what's happening around our impact. And so, when you put all of those together, it not just was a big transaction for us and what we were doing, it also allowed us to have lasting impact in the communities that we're serving, and to build out this new model of now our New Voices Fund model that allows us to continue the journey of investing and building Black businesses in our communities. Excellent. We could spend another 45 minutes on that alone. Turning to you, I thought we had an excellent discussion even earlier today, and would love for you to share, what are some of the key things that you look for when thinking about acquiring a new business? And then the second part of that question is, having done so successfully, can you talk a little bit about kind of the power of having a broader business that has complementary products and services, and what that can ultimately mean on behalf of the growth?
So that's a great question, Fred. So from our perspective, the reason why we went ahead and acquired other companies, Fred, if you go back about 4.5 years ago, all our growth was organic, growing at a rate of 40% year on year. But for the last 4 years, what we did was we went ahead and acquired 4 different companies. And the reason for that acquisition was there was a lot of transformation, innovation, and automation happening in some of those industries where we didn't have a strong presence. So one main reason was, there was a lot of innovation that's happening within our clientele base, but there were also a lot of innovation, transformation that was happening in certain industries where we didn't have a strong presence. So we went ahead and acquired some companies, and proud to say, Fred, all our acquisitions, they're all diverse, either women-owned or minority-owned companies. So, they, for instance, if we take an example of the most recent acquisition that we did last year, WBENC certified company, been in business for 25 years, strong presence within the insurance sector as a prime, doing a lot of great work for over 25 years. And that was one industry where we were seeing there was a lot of innovation, a lot of transformation happening, and we felt that would be a good acquisition. And also we went ahead and acquired them because they had a very good geographical footprint, and we didn't have a presence in that area.
Right. Okay.
Right. So geographical footprint, clientele, and people, culture, processes, all of those things, really play an important role. And then if you look at some of our acquisitions prior to that, we went ahead and acquired a cybersecurity firm. Well, we've been doing cybersecurity work for over 10 years. winning repeat businesses across industry segments. But what we learned was there was additional cybersecurity services that we could offer to our existing utility customers, as well as some of our other customers that we are providing services. So we went ahead and acquired a company that not just provides IT security services, but also provides OT security or operational technology security. So it's all about, what can we do to, expand our presence within our existing customer base, get repeat business, and what are innovative ways that we can make our clients' life easy, right? So those are some of the reasons, and then again, right, with acquisitions, come their people, come their processes, come their delivery centers, we prior to that, we acquired a company which had a strong presence within the tech sector. They were known for their best delivery processes and the delivery centers. And that was the time when a lot of our clients were moving from being local to national and global, and then having those different models of on-site, off-site, offshore. So it all worked well. So for us, you earlier question, Fred, you talked about scalability. It was all about that. So that's the reason why, we've gone ahead and acquired several companies, and all those acquisitions have been great. And I would also say it's been great because there was perfect cultural alignment, very good leaders, good people, and their clients have been great as well, right? So those, I would say, Fred, would be some of the main reasons, for us going and acquiring. And I think those should be some of the reasons why other companies should also look for, acquiring and expanding the presence. And Fred, you had another, I'm missing out on the second part.
Oh, no. So you actually covered most of what I wanted you to cover there. So to come back to a couple key things. So one, you looked at these big businesses that had a complementary skill set to your existing core business. You also looked at those that had customers that were beyond your existing customers, right? And then third, operated in areas geographically that you didn't. I think those are three really important. So can you talk a little bit about culture and how important that was also as you looked at these different companies?
No, I think it's very important, Fred, for any acquisition, we would say for any good marriage to, work, there has to be perfect alignment, right? And understanding. And I would say, Fred, from our perspective, integrating all of those companies was not that tough, was easy because there was perfect cultural alignment, very good thought leadership within those companies, very good processes, and the right mindset. And their vision and mission very well aligned with ours, right from the reason as to why do we exist and what is important for us, right? For us, bringing a positive impact on the lives of our clients, our employees, and communities of large is why we exist, right? Doing that in the most innovative way is what excites us. And that is exactly what, the other companies believed in. So because there was perfect cultural alignment, Fred, it worked well, and it's working well. So very, very important. Otherwise, I'll tell you, if there's no perfect cultural alignment, it could fall through cracks. No, super important point. And then I think, I think it's important that we think about how best to scale and what are the types of businesses that check the boxes, and that you spoke about. Rich, I think it's equally important that we also talk about, while it's important to scale, kind of what are things to be on the lookout for that, Rich, as you looked at potential investment opportunities and at a high level from a strategy standpoint made sense, but then we unpacked it and got to look at the business a little bit further, and this question goes to you as well, but Rich, if we can start with you, what are those telltale signs that the business owners should be looking for when they're looking at potential acquisition targets that potentially would give you pause or make you say, perhaps this is not the right investment for us?
I think this really comes down to your objectives and who you are as the acquirer, and what your values are, and what is important, and because I think as you think about it strategically, we look at these businesses and I'm like, are we strategically aligned? What is the value that can be created by putting the two together? Where can value be depleted by putting the two together? Strategically, do they bring capabilities we don't have? Do they, right? So I think all of those things are important, and they're logical, right? But for me, I think that I always say, I invest in people, not in businesses, right? So I want to know whether it's an investment or an acquisition that we're doing. I want to know that the people that are there and the people that are leading it are doing more than themselves, right? Because I only want to be engaged and involved with purpose-driven companies, right? And you say, wow, that's great. Yeah, you can have a purpose-driven street paver, right? You can have a purpose if they're doing it, if there's a bigger calling than themselves, because when the business runs into a challenge or gets into trouble, you want to know that you have people that are doing it for more than just the business, because that's who's going to stick around. That's who they're going to make different decisions than the people that they're only because, hey, I'm going to get a check out of this, or I'm driving on a check. So for me, it's the people that are there, and whether it's an acquisition or an investment, are these people that are here more than just themselves. The second thing that and then is the business serving a purpose and a need, which we all look for and look to. But then I think once you get past that, right? Is this a business that's going to transform something for me, right? I'm not interested in businesses that expand the status of where a marketplace is. I'm always looking for businesses that are going to disrupt it, that's going to turn around. I'm not looking for businesses that make our businesses incrementally better or that make the market incrementally better, right? I'm looking for businesses that are just going to, tear the market apart. My best example of that is a business that we invested in, and it's McBride Sisters Wine.
Yeah, right? Sure. Yeah.
2 Black women. Nobody's paid attention to Black women in the wine space. Nobody's really paid attention to women in the wine space. They've got a great story. They've got incredible purpose. They're going to teach everybody all the wine. They were going to teach all their competitors what they missed by not respecting Black women in the wine space, right? They're up for Winery of the Year this year. They're the fastest growing wine company in America. They're completely disrupting the space, right? Honey Pot, I could go up and down. I'm looking for those businesses that are going to absolutely destroy the marketplace from a status quo perspective, right? Yeah. And when people look back on it, they're going to be like, whoa, we didn't see that coming, right? Because I think that the reason that that's so important to me is because we invest exclusively in Black, right? And everything that we do is going to be measured by, hey, are they worthy of this? Can they do this, right? So I want to be able to go back to the marketplace and say, look, you slept on us. Look at what we've done. Right. That's what they did today. That's what they did with Essence. That's what they've done and so we constantly have to be disrupting so that it makes the path for those that come behind easier. The next Black owned wine company that comes is going to be a lot easier for them than this one. So I guess big question, but that's how I think about it. Right.
Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. So many great lessons learned there and then answered. So thank you for that. Rich, I know you have a hard stop, so I want to make sure that we shift into Q&A. So, and I'm going to ask you this, the same question that I asked Rich, and then from there we're going to bring Frantz back and shift into Q&A. So certainly, please, continue to put your questions in the Q&A section. So again, Ann, similar question. We talked a lot about acquisitions and kind of what you look for to ultimately make the investment decision. Similarly, on the other side, as you think about investments that you considered but ultimately chose not to, what were the key things that led to that decision?
Yes, so from our perspective, right, Fred, there were many other companies that we've looked at, but we decided not to go, just like what Rich mentioned, right? I mean, great points, Rich, covered it well. There were some companies who were doing really well, financially very stable, doing exceptionally well. But again, right, when you go through that due diligence process, what we realized was, there was no alignment, right? And Rich's point, it's not always about business. It's all about who are we and why do we exist? What is that, that bigger picture? Are we here to disrupt? Are we here to bring a positive impact? And are we going to be here to continue to be that positive disruptor, right? So those are some of the things that, we look at. And most importantly, are those companies that we're acquiring, are they good, credible companies? In good standing, because that is something that you really want to keep a close eye on, because if they're not a good, credible company, not in good standing, and you can make investments and help them and take those companies to newer heights, but then if there's no alignment in the way that the business is being done, then believe me, it's not going anywhere, right? Then that acquisition is not going to be a good acquisition. So those are some of the things that we closely look at, Fred, and in addition to all the great points that Rich covered.
Okay, great. So Frantz, if you can come back to join us for the Q&A session, and thanks for everyone that has posted questions, and please keep them coming. Question around cultural fit, which is a really good one. What's the process you use to assess a cultural fit, and how do you onboard the acquisition to your culture? And so for this section, unless I directly turn to one of you, anyone, please feel free to go ahead and answer. So again, that question is, what process do you use to assess a cultural fit, and how do you onboard the acquisition to your culture?
Really terrific question, Fred. I'll take the first stab. What I can share with you, Fred, is that typically we don't stop, but we start with the Chief Executive Officer. And in our assessment of the Chief Executive Officer, we are looking for competence, we're looking for character, and we're looking for chemistry, if you will, with that leadership. It's not limited to the CEO. We evaluate the entirety, especially of the senior leadership team, but it's critically important that not only we are aligned with the CEO and the senior management team from a technical standpoint and as it pertains to the actual structure of the transaction, but are these people that share our values and share our vision and share a working relationship that if we were going to be in bed with them for a very long period of time, say 10 or even 20 years, that we'd be perfectly comfortable with that. And these are all the key questions that we focus on when we're evaluating a cultural fit with the CEO or senior leadership team.
Great. Anna, Rich, would you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I would say we would go ahead and spend a lot of time with the CEO and understanding, what excites them and what excites their team. And as Rich mentioned earlier, when we're acquiring, we're not acquiring just for the business, we're acquiring, with that acquisition comes people and processes and their thought process, right? And it's very important to understand that group, because Fred, all the acquisitions that we've done, we've continued to, retain those employees, right? Because we're acquiring so that we could, go to different markets and provide additional services, and we could also infuse all the experiences that we have and bring a lot of innovation. But then it's all about, for us, we've spend a lot of time with the CEO and understanding, their thought process, the culture, but we've also gone to the second and third level as well, because, it's after all, it's the people, all leaders across different business units. And so we do go to finance, we do go to HR, we go through all those different departments within these organizations, because just focusing on just sales or just recruiting or just having that CEO is not enough. We spread across all the divisions within the company and speak to their senior leadership, and then go a level below that as well, because it's very important to see, once we bring in and we acquire them and we work together, how is that going to be? Because acquisition, believe me, the process is not that difficult. You can engage your lawyers, but it's the integration piece, right? So if that has to be seamless, then I think from our perspective, at least, we felt it was important to go out to different levels.
Yeah, Fred, if I could just also add, Fred, I'm sorry, Rich.
Go ahead.
So Fred, if I could just also add that from our perspective, we have little desire to actually operate the businesses, and we want to empower our CEOs and our senior leadership teams to run and lead the enterprises that we happen to invest in. Okay, but as part of that process, we've got to be perfectly comfortable that the CEO and leadership team are aligned with us and share our vision for what would be possible in any particular acquisition or investment. So just to be crystal clear, part of our assessment of the culture is, hey, are these people that we can trust to preside over our investment? Because we're not going to operate the business, and we're not going to operate the business as well as the existing CEO and the management team. So we really got to believe in the culture, and we've got to believe in their competence.
Yeah. For us, we're set up, again, we're focused exclusively on Black, and we understand the challenges of building a business coming out of the Black community, period. And so, because that's where we focus, and we built several businesses coming out of the community around culture. So what we did was we built a model that we call PACE, and that model is purpose, access, capital, and expertise, and those are the lenses through which we look at everything we do. We got that model from work that we did with McKinsey and Bain in understanding what were the key tenets that drove success at Sundial over a 30-year period, and that enabled it to scale. And we deciphered out of that work what those things were. When we launched the fund, we set up New Voices Foundation, which sits underneath the fund and provides developmental services and access and infrastructure and tools to which now we serve almost, I think it's 27,300 Black businesses across the country that go through our program. So we're engaging with them on a day in, day out basis over time. And so as I think you said, nothing beats time. So we're spending time with Black entrepreneurs on an everyday basis over years, right? We're building relationships. We're understanding how they react, how they respond, things that they're willing to do, not willing to do, understanding where the leadership teams are and where they're not. And so when you put all of that together, for us, it's really building an infrastructure that allows us to create winners as opposed to pick winners, right? And so to answer your question, for us, it's spending the time in working with businesses in our community on an everyday basis, ongoing basis, not just through diligence. Because some companies will go through diligence with and they won't pass diligence. and they'll come work with us, and a year later they're in our fund because we've now cleaned up the things that were challenges, right? And so for us, that's our approach to it. It's a real systemic, structured approach to creating winners.
Got it. Okay. And so building upon that, and so there's in addition to the questions that are in the Q&A, there's also some interesting ones in the chat. And I want to turn to the chat because there's an interesting one. The question is, and it's to Rich, but I think this applies to each of the panelists. Can you share how you navigated the challenge of public opinion in the Black community that is sometimes showcased when selling a Black-owned business to a large corporation? And so I think what this gets to, Rich, is, often, well, not often, but sometimes there's the concern when selling a Black-owned business or this is broader than that, it's diverse, it's women-owned business, that there is some discount that is attached in the valuation of the business. So can you talk about, in those discussions with Unilever, because to me, it comes back to high quality product, regardless of who is the maker of the product, but it stands on its own as a high quality product. And as such, affords a valuation that's comparable with companies that are in that space. That being said, this is a question that I've heard time and time again. So I would love, your perspective on that, and to the degree that you encountered, any similar type questions in your process. How did you address it?
Oh, I didn't just encounter that in my process. I encountered it from my community. I encountered it from my partners. I encountered it everywhere, because Black people aren't supposed to build businesses and sell them, right? That's what's been instilled in us. That's the environment that they allowed us to operate in, and so that's the way that we think about it, right? And if you do it and you sell it, you're a sellout. But to be serious and sort of go back to how we thought about it and how we did. First of all, I said I believe in disruptive businesses, right? We built a business that disrupted an entire marketplace. I want a valuation not as a Black beauty company, not as a natural product company, not as anything other than a market changer, right? So don't even come talk to me if you don't understand that you're going to pay more than you've paid for anything else, because there's nothing else there's nothing else out there, right? I've built something, my family has built something that you're not going to buy from anybody else, right? And over the years, people tried to replicate it. They tried to buy others and turn it into what we were. Those things don't work. So first of all, build something from the beginning that's going to be transformative, and you'll be able to charge the premium for that transformation. If you're building something that's like everybody else, you're going to get measured like everybody else. And worse, if you're building something like everybody else and you're Black, you're going to get measured like everybody else and discounted lower than everybody else, right? So if you're going to build it, it's going to take the same amount of time to build something that nobody else has done in a way that nobody else can do it than it is going to take to replicate, to copy what somebody else is doing and be another Me Too. That's if you want to get get the premium, and then for us, the other thing that I advise people is, that first piece of our model, the purpose part of PACE, right? If you set a North Star and you're aligned to that North Star, and you know what your purpose is, and what what it is that you mean to your community and what you're trying to do for your community, there are always going to be detractors as you make your moves and as you do things, right? If you're distracted by your detractors, guess what? You're distracted, right? So for us, we stayed focused on what we were trying to do. We were trying to build a business that could invest at scale back in the Black community. And even if the Black community didn't understand that because they hadn't seen it before, that was okay. That didn't change what we set out to do. And so when we did what we did, and as we continue to do what we did, we just continue to execute against our playbook. Take the money that you made, put it back in the community. So now we did that exit. People got upset. They got excited. Why did you do this? Now we can go back and say, yeah, but this is what we said we were going to do. Look at the investments we did. You know, I tell we've created in 2 years more value through new voices than we did in 30 years at Sundial. Right? So if we can demonstrate that, and if we can show that, and we can help people get on that path, then all of the noise becomes worth it, and the noise gets quieter and quieter. When we sold our business, this was 2017, or in fact, no, we go back further when we partnered, and this will be interesting for France. When we partnered with Bain, there was also a huge upheaval, right? Oh, you sold to Mitt Romney. No, we didn't sell to Mitt Romney. He hasn't been at Bain in 20 years, right? He's got nothing to do with this. But what we did do was get the best private equity player in the marketplace to shift their model in order to invest in our business, right? So let's show our community what can happen when you build these businesses and you're steeped in the purpose around these businesses, and you drive the business around that. And the reason that I brought up Bain and why that was important was because it was really the first time that a large private equity firm of that scale and size and caliber and quality had invested in a Black business, and that's of that size, scale, and quality. Today, since we've done that deal with Bain, just in our fund alone, we've done 3 similar deals, right? So, and there are other people that are doing deals like that. Because we broke that barrier, people are now less afraid to do that. Is the point that I'm getting at with that, right? And so it's just about staying true to who you are, understanding what your purpose is, and living that purpose on a day in, day out basis. And if your purpose is to do good for the community, whether or not they understand it or appreciate it at the time, if you continue to do the work and you continue to do good, they will eventually understand it. They will see it, and more people will benefit from it.
Yeah, Fred, my contribution to the conversation, if you are an MBE or WBE, and you happen to be an MBE, WBE of scale, what I think you will find is that the corporates will represent to any new investor that a platform that's MBE certified or WBE certified is looking to partner with. Those corporates, in my experience, are entirely willing to demonstrate that, hey, this particular company is of very high value, regardless of their designation as MBE or WBE. This platform is going to continue to be an innovative supply chain partner to us, with or without the designation. But in my experience, that narrative and that comfort comes with substantial scale. All of that notwithstanding, we on the NMSDC side with MBEs have the growth initiative that enables existing MBEs to sell down a portion of the common ownership below the 51% threshold and continue to hold the MBE certification. And it's also been my experience that with the growth initiative, companies can successfully exit. And by the way, these exit strategies and these liquidity strategies, they're processes. They're not one-time events. The growth initiative could be very, very helpful in helping companies transition without having to lose on valuation. Very importantly, however, whether as a WBE or as an MBE, if the platforms can demonstrate to potential new investors and new acquirers that they use the designation as a means to drive additional value and have higher quality conversations, and not as the basis for going back to the corporates and saying, hey, I'm a WBE, I'm an MBE, I want a contract. That posture or that approach is far more likely to be well received by new investors that might not be diverse. When the corporates can legitimately say, hey, we use the designation to have high quality conversations. This particular MBE or WBE did not win the contract just because they're an MBE or WBE. Right. We're going to continue to innovate with them anyway.
Yeah, no, very well said. Very well said. And Ann, and definitely, I think your perspective, and it's great because you have Rich, who's ran a very successful operating business. Now he's on the side where he's actually putting capital into businesses. You know, Frantz, obviously, both has had also a successful exit, but now is in a similar position where he will be providing capital and your perspective running a operating business, I think, is equally important to hear as part of this discussion.
Yeah, so from our perspective, right, Fred, what we're seeing, especially in our industry, right, being a consulting firm as well as a human capital management company, it's all about, differentiation, right? There may be a lot of staffing companies out there. There may be a lot of consulting companies, but to Franz's point, it's all about being different in addition to being a women-owned business or an MVP. What is that, that positive change that you're going to bring in the lives of your customers, right? So from our perspective, there's so much, there's so many innovative ways that we're bringing a positive impact on the lives of our clients. Fred, you're aware we have a huge innovation lab at our corporate headquarters here. We're innovating, and we're also co-innovating with our clients, and we're finding innovative ways of increasing efficiencies, increasing productivity, bringing in cost savings, and also helping our clients from ideation to full-blown implementation or ideation to commercialization. And that's where we're seeing a lot of those wins, right? Because clients want that. They have their internal teams doing it, but then they're also looking out for companies like us as their extension, so that, because for them too, speed to market is important, and they're looking at disruptors and innovators like us. And for us as a group, with all the acquisitions that we've done, Fred, it's a perfect combination of innovative minds, innovative and creative minds and passionate people. And when all that come together, we're doing nothing but creating magical moments together, right? Yeah. We're helping our clients bring their projects to finish line through innovation and bringing in the right talent. And that is why, from a differentiation perspective, we're a little different, and we looked at a little differently. And that's why now when they're awarding contracts, they're awarding, they may bring in 2 large corporations, but then they're looking at us as well at that same level, and awarding us, huge modernization projects and so on. So it's all about, looking at things a little differently and acquiring with a different mindset, right? So that we continue to be that positive disruptor.
Awesome. I think we should I know we're getting, I think, towards the end of this part of the conversation. So what I would just love, for just last question, just, for each panelist, if you can keep your comments hopefully to about 60 seconds. Just, we've covered a lot today, but would just love any additional insight in terms of final parts of wisdom and advice that you can provide. And Rich, if we can start with you. Rich, I think you're on mute. There we go.
I'm sorry. The question was what advice I would provide?
Yeah. I was just saying, look, we've covered a lot of topics and I think it's been incredibly insightful. Just wanted to give you an opportunity, if there are any last words of wisdom on topics or things that we haven't covered.
I don't know if I would equate me and wisdom together, but I'll make an effort to say something that sounds wise. I think, build your North Star into your business. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for me, it's that simple.
Yeah. Excellent. I actually use that phrase with respect to our business here at JPMorgan almost daily. So very much aligned. And same question to you.
In addition to being a mission-driven company, be a data-driven company, and continue to move the needle from impossible to real possibilities.
Excellent. And then Frantz, to close with you.
Just as Ann indicated, we are a purpose and mission-driven organization here at Ariel Alternatives. For us, this is not a job, it's not a career. This is, in fact, a mission and a purpose that keeps us up late, gets us up early, and engenders very high levels of commitment. Your audience members, Fred, each of those of you who are listening in right now are our constituency. What I would add as it pertains to a word of advice, both personally and as the co-founder of Project Black, we've had extraordinary success by pivoting our orientation to place the customer at the center of everything that we do. And the customer represents the demand for our products and services. In placing that demand at the center of our strategy has worked extremely well for us. And I suspect that your constituency, Fred, listening to us right now, if they're within earshot of our remarks, would be well served by focusing intently, almost obsessively, with meeting the needs of that customer base. It's worked for us, and I think that it'll work very, very well for the members of the WBE community that happen to be listening in right now.
Great. To each of our esteemed panelists, thank you. I think without question, everyone, there were key lessons learned today. I encourage each of the entrepreneurs who attended today's session to take to heart the wisdom and advice that was shared. So this concludes this portion of our panel. So thank you all.
Everybody. Thank you, Ann, Frantz, Fred. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone.
Fred. Thank you all. Thank you, Audrey.
Great. So I think we're kind of reaching the end. We at JPMorgan Chase are tremendously proud to be a sponsor for this event. We did attach some information about JPMorgan that we thought will be helpful, and I'll cover quickly. I feel very proud of the work that's being done at JPMorgan to support diversity. Following the horrific murder of George Floyd, we created something called our racial equity commitment, which was our 5-year commitment to help close the racial gap. Key to that was we looked at how do we help create wealth, and to that end, 26 billion of that 30 billion is geared towards providing mortgages, refinancing, and keeping affordable housing intact, with the focus on both the Black and Latinx community. This is something that we're extremely proud of, that the firm has undertaken. That was a year ago. If we fast forward to today, so Audrey, perhaps if you can go to the next slide, it's with great pride that I share of that $30 billion commitment. We have already executed on nearly half of that. 13 billion of the 30 billion has been committed as part of that racial equity commitment. A couple key things that I wanted to highlight there is significant funding on behalf of affordable housing. We've also looked at, in the diverse community, how do we provide education? How do we provide content? So to that degree, we have hired 20 diverse business leaders to sit in our branches with the sole focus on working with small businesses and helping them with business plans, with business development, with marketing, just as a service on behalf of JPMorgan Chase to help support women in diverse businesses. And then finally, we've put $350 million in philanthropic capital towards the support for Black, Latino, and women-owned businesses. So those are some of the key highlights of what we've done today. That being said, there's a lot more work to be done, but wanted to share that with this group. Next, turning to the group that I'm responsible for, which is our national business supporting women, diverse, and veteran-owned businesses. Back to Rich's point, these 3 pillars, these are North Star. How do we provide thoughtful educational content that ultimately is going to help those businesses grow and scale? Some of you may have participated. We created a supplier diversity series at JPMorgan, and we're thrilled to have Michael Byron, who I believe is participating today, join us to talk about, as a diverse business and a women-owned business, how best to position yourself for Fortune 500 companies. Michael provided terrific insight. We also had the heads of AT&T and Ford participate in that same series, facilitating growth and connections beyond our ecosystem. We are sponsors for a couple of really important organizations, including WBENC, that ultimately we think by aligning with organizations like WBENC, we can drive even more impact in the communities that we serve. And then third, it's really starting with our clients, engaging, better understanding how can we serve them, what products and solutions can we create to help drive impact. And that takes us to the next slide, which to me, this is at the heart of why I come into work every day. This is a company called Air Protein. This company last year was going to raise a Series A financing, had an incredible idea, which basically was to create alternative meat using photosynthesis, and to do so in 72 hours. They were going to look to raise $25 million of capital of what they thought would be, call it a $50 million valuation. We leveraged all the parts of the business here at JPMorgan to help them identify how best to position the company, ultimately help them find a key investor, and then subsequently raise $30 million at a $100 million valuation. That's impact. That's why I come to work every single day, is to help drive impact on behalf of each of these key areas that matters to us, and it is why we come to work every day, to support women businesses, diverse businesses, and veteran-owned businesses. And then just lastly, I did want to quickly touch on two key partners here that we have at the bank. The first is Advancing Black Pathways. There are several key important elements here. One I would like to highlight is that we have something called Advancing Entrepreneurs, which provides business coaching on behalf of diverse businesses. That's something that we've launched over the last year, and it's been extremely successful. We've also made a commitment to hire 4,000 Black analysts over the next 5 years. Proud to say we have hired over 3,400 in the first year, so well on our way to achieving that goal. I'm also proud to say that I helped mentor some of those analysts, which I think we all have. It's important that we all give back to support these analysts as they grow. And then finally on this page, financial literacy is a key pillar for advancing Black pathways, and we've highlighted some of the things that we have there. And then just lastly, if we can turn to our focus around women on the move. You know, this was something that we started internally at JPMorgan several years ago, focus on our existing talent at JPMorgan. It has since been expanded to also support women-owned businesses, and it's highlighted here. We're focused on how we help those businesses scale and grow, which is back to our true North Star. And there's a couple of programs that we have which are highlighted on this page. So these are just a few of the things that we have here at JPMorgan. And I think we're about 5 minutes from close. So let me just, in terms of our section with respect to JPMorgan, our North Star is anchored in how do we support women in diverse businesses? How do we bring all the resources that we have to help them scale and grow? WBENC has been a tremendous partner, and I look forward to continuing to work with the team at WBENC. So with that, Audrey, I'm going to turn it over back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fred. Thank you to all the speakers today. I couldn't stop like my pen. I was taking a lot of notes and just a wealth of knowledge today. Thank you so much for the time that you spent, Fred, for making this session possible. And as you mentioned, Michael Byron as well with Walmart, Bill Capper with JPMorgan Chase Co, Jill Davis from JPMorgan, Frantz Alphonse. Thank you so much for being our speaker for today. And both Rich, thank you for the experiences that you shared as well with us today. Everyone in the chat was really eager for the information that you provided and a lot of great feedback. And they're eager to also connect with you as well and plug into some of the experiences that you shared. So we're grateful. Thank you so much again. I would also like to thank our founding sponsors, Altria, the Coca-Cola Company, JPMorgan Chase Co, Southern California Edison, Walmart. Thank you for your dedication to women-owned businesses in our network. And thank you for attending our session today. Again, Wealth of Knowledge, we will be sending information out on both the presentation that Fred gave just now, in addition to the recording, in case you want to go back and re-listen. And also, please keep in mind that the Women of Color program here at WBENC, we have another last session this month. It will be the final session of the year. It's going to be on Tuesday, December 14th from 2:30 to 4:30 Eastern. That session is called Taking Flight. And the focus of that session is to help you create and execute a successful strategic plan. And so again, focusing on creating and executing a successful strategic plan. The session will be hosted by the Corporate Strategy and Supplier Diversity and Inclusion team at Delta Airlines. And so you do not want to miss it. To register, let me just post the link to the chat right now so everyone has access to it. We hope to see you soon. Thank you, everyone, again. Let me just post the link in the chat. We hope to see you soon, and thank you. Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a great day.